Should you still buy an iPhone 7? That video's coming up right now. Let's go. So, what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and this is the iPhone 7, and in this video we're going to talk about should you still buy this thing here in the latter half of 2017, coming into the fourth quarter of the year with the upcoming release of the iPhone 8. Now, I'm going to break this video down into several sections, and I'm going to share with you some of my experiences, but let's begin with the key specifications. So, we all know that the iPhone 7 is rocking the Apple A10 CPU with 2 gigs of RAM, with the 7 Plus going with a 3 gig of RAM version, and the performance on this guy with those key specs right there have been just pretty great. This also has a 12 megapixel iSight camera that shoots in at 4K video, and it has less than a 3000 milliamp hour battery, so it's not the best battery life we're going to see in the world, and it does have a really fast second gen Touch ID scanner, which always works very well here. Now, it does have quad LED flash here as well, and it does hide the antenna lines, but back into the specifications, a 7 megapixel camera on the front with that classic retina display that's less than 1080p, which isn't stellar anymore if you ask me. But those are pretty much the key specifications that matter here for the iPhone 7 in later 2017. So in this section, I want to talk about design. Should you buy this thing here in terms of design? And here's an area where I think the iPhone 7 is kind of a mixed bag of potato chips. So the iPhone 7 does have antenna lines that do wrap back upwards. Some people say this is great. Some people say they like the antenna lines of the iPhone 6. So I think the rear has improved in terms of design on the 7 and still looks pretty modern. Just not very inspiring, just not super exciting. It's just kind of a decently nice, pretty design, but it doesn't do anything to wow anybody. On the front of this device, we do have a basic flat screen, and these bezels are starting to look a little bit chunky here coming into the fourth quarter of 2017, as we've seen phones like the Galaxy S8 release as well as the LG G6. The front design of the iPhone 7 is just pretty stale here, so coming into this phone now, if you decide to purchase thing now, it is going to look a little bit old and standard in terms of the front, but the back definitely looks a little bit more modern than a lot of phones even today. So I think it's held up well in design, and it's, you know, it's true Apple design. It's going to be quality. It's going to last throughout the years. Just know that this one is very quickly going to look like, you know, yesteryear's phone once the iPhone 8 releases. If you're asking yourself, should you buy the iPhone 7 in terms of the body and the build durability, we talked about design, but now in terms of the body, the build durability, you're looking at a 7.1 millimeter design here for the iPhone 7. So this thing is still pretty damn thin. IP67 certified, that's water resistant. IP68 on its closest competitor, the Galaxy, making that phone almost waterproof. So this one is sealed, so this thing can definitely suffer water damage, so I don't recommend you take this thing in the shower with you, although if it does tend to drop in a toilet or a swimming pool, it should be fine. So that's pretty great here on the iPhone 7. Dust resistant as well, so you're not going to see a bunch of dust or sand inside of your screen depending on the situation. And in terms of weight, we're looking at 138 grams here for the iPhone 7. So overall, its body and weight is still good. I mean, it's a light phone. It's a really easy one thumb phone, so if you got a decent size hand like I do, you will definitely be able to use this thing pretty easily with one hand. So this is a nice one thumb phone. I still think the SE is the better one thumb phone, but this is still a very small phone in comparison to some of the larger phones on the market, like even its bigger brother, the iPhone 7 Plus. So nice footprint, body and build solid here. If you're picking up an iPhone 7, in terms of durability, it's going to be a very durable phone going forward, even though its design is suffering a little bit in my personal opinion. So I cannot, do this video without talking about that display here. Should you buy this thing in terms of display? And this is one area of the iPhone where I definitely cannot recommend you to buy this phone if you're looking at for just display. Now, I know some people are going to argue and say, Nick, you know what? The iPhone 7 has a great display. It's so clear. It's P3, wide color gamut. I mean, I have no issues reading it. Retina display, beautiful. but 4.7 inches, you know, if you cram a 2K display in there, we're looking at a super high resolution, making this even easier to read on the eyes. A measly 326 pixels per inch. And I'm not trying to be negative Nancy over here, or negative Nikki, whatever you want to call it, but this thing is just not hanging with the S8. It's not hanging with the LG G6s of the world. The display is not an area I would recommend. So just stay away from the iPhone 7 if you're looking for a strong display or one of the best on the market. It definitely is not that right now after what we've seen this year from main competitors. But if you just want a standard display and you don't care about displays like that much, this thing will do the trick just fine. I'm not saying it's a horrible display. It is IPS, so in-plane switching. It does have a very accurate color. Now, going against what I said, it is pretty clear and stuff like that. But, you know, I'm holding this up to the kings in the smartphone market, and this one just is not king anymore. So, yeah, display is 50-50 for me. If you want the best display, you're not getting it here. And for the price of this phone, which we'll talk about later, I don't think the display is cutting it. So that's how I feel about the display, but this is my perspective. You might differ, and that's cool. You know, buying the iPhone 7 for its display, you know, you're going to probably be happy, but you're definitely going to be wanting more or desiring more when you see what Apple brings out this year with their all-screen design. So should you buy an iPhone 7 still here in 2017 at this point, you know, in terms of software? And this is one area I could recommend. I mean, updated to iOS 10.3.3, there's been a huge security flaw going around, and Apple has been one of the first to go ahead and get this thing squashed, this bug, the Broadcom bug. If you've heard of it, it's basically where Wi-Fi chips can be hacked behind the scenes. You don't even know somebody has hacked your phone. And it's not like it's going to happen to you, but, you know, just that peace of mind of knowing it's not going to happen to you is pretty great to see. So Apple all year long has been updating iOS. iOS 10 has been running super efficient, super smooth, better on the iPhone 7 than pretty much any phone. And I think it even runs better on the 7 than the 7 Plus. The 7 has a lower resolution screen, so it makes it just fly. This is the fastest phone I've ever used, to be honest with you. Maybe the, you know, behind the OnePlus 3T, but this thing is super, super quick. And if you guys are going to buy this in terms of software here, iOS 11 is coming to this guy. I could wholeheartedly recommend it. It's got great software, some of the best in the world here, and the iPhone 7 is a definite recommendation still for the software department. iOS 10.3.3 being the latest official version. So should you buy this iPhone 7 still in terms of that camera? And this is one area, again, where I could definitely recommend you still buy this thing. This guy shoots incredibly good pictures. I'm not going to go ahead and show you samples. I did a whole camera review and plenty of other contents on the iPhone 7 when it first released. You can check that out on the channel right now. I got a whole playlist on this thing here. But this 12 megapixel iSight camera is just a champ. I mean, I do like the dual camera setup on the 7 Plus a little bit better with its zoom functionality. But just for quick snaps, and this camera is close to, you know, most point and shoots, if not better than most point and shoots on the market. I mean, you're gonna have to pay like $500-600 to get a better camera, you know, and an actual camera versus the iPhone 7. That's how good this camera is. Now, the front-facing camera with its Retina flash is also pretty good, and you know, it's not the best front-facing camera I've seen on the world, but it's still pretty stellar. And for a 7 megapixel camera, it does a great job. So in terms of the camera department, this is one area where definitely you can still go with the iPhone 7 and it's going to work just fine. Plus it has one of the easiest modes you can use on pretty much, you know, any smartphone. So shoots in 4K as well. So camera, wholeheartedly recommended if you're still trying to look to buy one of these later in 2017. Alright guys, we cannot do this video without talking about the battery life, if you should still buy this thing later here in the year. And you know, my experience with the iPhone 7 has been, if you charge this thing, it's going to work a lot better. Meaning that this battery needs to have a charger near it or have a battery pack with you, you know, if you're trying to go a super long day. Now, if you do use this thing light, you turn off location, you turn off Bluetooth, you're rocking it on, you know, medium to low brightness, you don't even need to bring the charger with you, honestly. This thing's doing about 3 to 4 hours on screen time, sometimes 4 to 5, depending on how you use it. Once again, it all is subjective in terms of the battery life department, but definitely putting low battery power mode on is going to get you quite a bit more battery life here on this iPhone 7. Overall, I say it's good. It's just not great here in terms of battery. So if you're coming to this phone for, you know, battery life, I think you're going to be a little disappointed if you're thinking you're going to get an iPhone 7 and have great battery life. Alright guys, so let's wrap this video up by talking about price with the iPhone 7. So this is still the cream of the crop of iPhone right now, until the later, editions the release for this year, such as the 7S, the 7S Plus, the 8, whatever it's going to be called. But you could pick an iPhone 7 up here for right around $499 or $450 if you go routes like Swappa, for example, although these phones are going to be mint condition used or refurbished. Now, if you do want to buy this thing brand new from Apple, you're still, like I say, you're going to be paying $749, $849, depending on the model you go with. This right here was actually purchased on Swappa. This is a 256 gig, and this thing was about $600, so definitely about $250 off to $300 off with tax over a 256 gig straight from Apple. Now, if you do buy this thing on eBay, you can even get cheaper deals and all kinds of those applications. But if you just want to go straight into a store, this thing is still up there in the price point. And for good reason. It's still a really great phone, but I would wait just a little bit longer till the 8 comes out if you want to buy this thing, and you want to get it at a discounted price. This is going to come down a little bit of price point, but if you want it at a discounted price now, just go ahead and check out, sites like I said, like eBay, Amazon, Swappa, sites like that. You'll definitely get a better deal here. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up here for me of should you buy an iPhone 7 here still in 2017, now that we are getting really close to the iPhone 8 launch. And I would say if you have no intentions of even seeing or buying the iPhone 8, like that ain't the phone for me right now. I just don't care about having the latest and greatest. I just want an iPhone 7. I think you're still going to be extremely happy with this purchase. Now, if you're coming from an iPhone 6, this is going to be a very large update in terms of performance, camera, and stuff like that, but it's going to feel about the same in terms of the screen and the body, so you're not going to feel too much different there. If you're coming from an iPhone, I would say SE, this is going to just feel like a more premium version of that. If you're coming from anything less than a 6, 5S, a 5, maybe a 4S, depending on who you speak to, this is going to be a massive upgrade for you. And if you're coming over from Android, this is definitely, depending on what Android you're coming from, if you're coming from a premium Android, this could be a great phone. But if you're coming from, like, say, I'd say like a Note series device or something like that, this might not even feel like that much of an upgrade unless you really just want to try out the iOS software. It's still going to be pretty smooth for you. But that pretty much wraps it up here for me. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, drop them down below in the comments section of this video, and a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Share this with one friend you think might find this helpful, family member, anybody you think you might find this helpful. They're looking to buy an iPhone 7, it would be appreciated. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well. I will catch you all in the next episode, and peace.